The Death Cell. The reinforced steel gates of Zal'tr Maximum Security Prison clanged open, and Jack Tanner stepped inside, his tool bag slung casually over his shoulder. His rugged face bore a calm expression, but his sharp green eyes took in every detail of the alien facility, the flickering fluorescent lights, the acrid smell of burnt machinery, and the towering guards with their reptilian scales glinting under the harsh lighting. "You're late, human," snarled a Thorn overseer, his forked tongue flicking in irritation. His muscular frame loomed over Jack, but the mechanic didn't flinch. Years spent repairing starships in the worst war zones had hardened him to threats, even those from towering alien jailers. "Got a call to fix your busted cell," Jack replied, his voice steady. "I'm here, aren't I?" The overseer's lips curled into what could have been a grin or a grimace. "Not just any cell. You'll be working on cell 13X. That's where the beast is." Jack raised an eyebrow. "The beast?" Another guard, smaller but just as menacing, chuckled darkly. "You'll see soon enough. Hope your tools are tougher than your skin." Jack didn't respond. He wasn't here to banter, he was here to work. As the guards led him deeper into the facility, whispers echoed in the corridors. "Deadliest thing we've ever captured. Ripped through 3 squads before it was subdued. They're sending a human. He won't last 5 minutes." The corridor ended at a massive reinforced door. Warning glyphs in every known language blinked ominously. The Thorn guards hesitated, their weapons raised. Jack glanced at them. "What's the matter? Afraid of your own prisoner?" The overseer scowled but said nothing. He keyed in a sequence on the control panel, and the door hissed open, revealing the dark void within. "Good luck, human," the overseer sneered. "You'll need it." Jack stepped inside without hesitation, the door slamming shut behind him. The cell was cavernous, the walls lined with heavy restraints and scorched marks that spoke of past struggles. At the center of the chamber lay a creature unlike anything Jack had ever seen. The Verian Wolf was massive, its body a coiled mass of muscle and fur that shimmered faintly under the dim light. Its glowing crimson eyes tracked Jack's every movement, and its claws, as long as daggers, clicked against the steel floor as it shifted. A low, guttural growl emanated from its chest, vibrating through the room. "Big guy, aren't you?" Jack muttered, setting down his tool bag. He crouched beside the faulty control panel, his hands already moving to assess the damage. "Guess they weren't kidding about you." The wolf didn't move, but its eyes never left him. Jack could feel the weight of its gaze, intelligent, calculating. This wasn't just an animal. It was something far more dangerous. As Jack worked, sparks flew from the damaged wires, illuminating the room in brief flashes. The wolf flinched slightly but didn't attack. Jack smirked. "Don't like the noise, huh? I get it. I'm not a fan either." He continued talking as he worked, a habit he developed over years of solitary repairs. "I'll bet they didn't tell you why I'm here. Just sent me in like some kind of joke. Let the human fix it, right? Probably think I'm expendable." The wolf's growl deepened, almost like a low chuckle. Jack paused, glancing up. "You laughing at me, or agreeing with me?" The creature tilted its head slightly, the movement eerily deliberate. Jack nodded as if they'd reached an understanding. "Thought so." After an hour of careful work, Jack reset the power flow to the cell's energy barrier. The field flickered to life, casting a faint blue glow across the room. He stood, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. "There. That should hold for a while." As he turned to leave, the wolf rose to its full height, towering over him. Its crimson eyes glinted, and for a moment, Jack thought it might attack. Instead, it stepped closer, its movements slow and deliberate. It lowered its massive head until its glowing eyes were level with Jack's. "Not going to eat me, are you?" Jack asked, his voice calm but wary. The wolf rumbled softly, its gaze unwavering. Then, with surprising gentleness, it nudged Jack's tool bag with its snout before retreating to its original position. Jack exhaled, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Guess that's a no. As he exited the cell, the Thorn guards looked at him with a mixture of shock and disappointment. You're still alive, the overseer growled. Fixing machines, Jack said, slinging his tool bag over his shoulder, not getting eaten. But as he walked away, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his encounter with the wolf was far from over. Understanding. Jack Tanner couldn't shake the memory of the Verian Wolf as he sat in the prison's dingy maintenance bay, surrounded by half-functional tools and piles of mismatched parts. The beast's piercing crimson eyes, the intelligence behind them, and the deliberate nudge it gave his tool bag, it all played over in his mind. The wolf wasn't just dangerous, it was thinking, observing, and it hadn't killed him when it had the chance. Still alive, human. Thorn Overseer Gorlick sneered, entering the bay with his usual arrogant swagger. I suppose the beast didn't find you worth the effort. Jack didn't look up from the plasma welder he was repairing. Guess I'm not on the menu. The Overseer's laughter was sharp and hollow. You'll be back in that cell soon enough. The barrier you patched won't last, and when it fails, I doubt the wolf will spare you twice. Jack smirked. You underestimate your prisoner's taste. Gorlick snarled but left, slamming the bay door behind him. Jack sighed, setting down the welder. Something about the wolf lingered in his thoughts. He wasn't sure if it was curiosity or something more primal, an instinct that the beast wasn't the mindless killer the Thorn believed it to be. He made up his mind. He needed to see the wolf again. That evening, Jack made his way back to cell 13X under the guise of routine maintenance. The guards didn't question him, assuming he was either brave or foolish for wanting to return to the wolf's lair. The truth was, Jack wasn't entirely sure which he was either. The door hissed open, and the familiar dark expanse of the cell greeted him. The wolf lay in its usual spot, its massive form coiled like a spring. Its glowing eyes opened, locking onto Jack as he stepped inside. Miss me? Jack asked, setting his tool bag down. The wolf didn't growl or move, but its gaze was unrelenting. Jack crouched by the control panel, pretending to check the energy barrier's power levels. I've been thinking about you, he said, glancing at the beast. You're not just some oversized guard dog, are you? You're different. The wolf tilted its head slightly, its ears twitching. Jack took that as encouragement to keep talking. I know what it's like to be underestimated, Jack continued. People see a mechanic and think all I do is fix things. They don't know what I'm capable of. My guess is they don't know what you're capable of either. The wolf let out a low rumble, not quite a growl, but not entirely friendly either. Jack chuckled softly. Yeah, I get it. You don't trust me yet. Can't say I blame you. He reached into his tool bag and pulled out a small device, a signal scrambler he had cobbled together in the maintenance bay. Holding it up, he explained, this little thing can disrupt the guards' calls. If you're as smart as I think you are, we might have a shot at getting out of here. The wolf rose to its feet, its massive frame unfolding with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. It stepped closer, its claws clicking softly against the steel floor. Jack tensed, but he held his ground. The wolf stopped a foot away, its crimson eyes locked on the scrambler. Then, to Jack's astonishment, it let out a soft huff, almost like approval. Guess we're on the same page, Jack said, a grin spreading across his face. All right, big guy. Let's see what you can do. Over the next few days, Jack returned to the wolf's cell under the pretense of maintenance checks. Each visit brought them closer to understanding each other. Jack talked while he worked, sharing stories from his past, the long hours in shipyards, the endless repairs during wartime, and the quiet, lonely nights spent fixing machines no one else cared about. The wolf, for its part, listened. Its reactions were subtle, a tilt of the head, a soft growl, or a low rumble that almost sounded like laughter. Jack began to wonder just how much the beast understood. Was it simply reacting to his tone, or was it truly grasping his words? On the fourth visit, Jack brought something new, a small piece of dried meat he had saved from his rations. He placed it on the floor between them and stepped back. The wolf approached cautiously, sniffing the offering. Its eyes met Jack's, and for a moment, something passed between them, an understanding, a mutual respect. The wolf ate the meat, then sat back on its haunches, watching Jack with what could only be described as curiosity. "We're going to get out of here," Jack said quietly. "Both of us. I don't know how yet, but we will." The wolf's rumble was softer this time, almost like agreement. Jack smiled, feeling for the first time since his arrival that he wasn't alone in this place. As he prepared to leave, the wolf did something unexpected. It moved to the corner of the cell and used its massive claws to scratch something into the metal wall. Jack approached, his heart racing as he saw what the wolf had drawn, a crude but unmistakable map of the prison's layout. "You've been watching," Jack whispered in amazement. "You know this place better than the guards do." The wolf's eyes gleamed, and Jack realized that his earlier suspicions were correct. This wasn't just an intelligent animal, it was a strategic thinker, a survivor who had been planning its own escape long before Jack arrived. Their partnership had just become something much more dangerous. The plan. The crude map scratched into the cell wall was more detailed than Jack had initially realized. As he studied it during his next visit, he could see the wolf had observed everything: guard rotations, weak points in the structure, even the location of the main power grid. The Verian Wolf wasn't just intelligent, it was a tactical genius trapped in a beast's body. "How long have you been planning this?" Jack asked, running his fingers over the scratched lines. The wolf's response was a low, rumbling sound that seemed almost like laughter. Jack had spent the last 2 days gathering supplies, carefully pilfering components from around the prison under the guise of routine maintenance. His reputation as the reliable human mechanic gave him access to areas other prisoners never saw. The guards trusted him, a mistake that would soon cost them dearly. "Okay, here's what I'm thinking," Jack said, crouching beside the map. "Your drawing shows the ventilation system connects to the old mining tunnels beneath the prison. That's our way out. But first, we need to deal with the energy barriers and the guard stations." The wolf moved closer, its massive head lowering to study the map alongside Jack. When Jack pointed to the main power junction, the wolf's eyes gleamed with understanding. "The blackout needs to be timed perfectly," Jack continued. 30 seconds maximum before the emergency generators kick in. That's our window." The wolf made a series of soft growls and rumbles, almost like it was trying to communicate something specific. Jack watched intently as the creature moved to another section of the wall and began scratching new marks, timing indicators, guard positions, even what appeared to be a countdown sequence. "You want to coordinate the timing," Jack realized. "You've been counting their patrols, haven't you?" The wolf's amber eyes met his, and Jack saw something that made his breath catch, not just intelligence, but trust. This magnificent creature was placing its faith in him, just as he was trusting it with his life. Over the next 3 visits, they refined their plan. Jack would disable the main power grid from the maintenance bay, creating the blackout. The wolf would use those precious seconds to break free from its cell, the weakened barriers wouldn't hold against its full strength. They would meet at junction point 7 in the ventilation system, then make their way to the old mining tunnels that connected to the surface. "There's just one problem," Jack said during their final planning session. "The moment you break out, every alarm in this place will scream. Even with the blackout, they'll know something's wrong." The wolf's response surprised him. It moved to the far corner of the cell and began a series of movements, stretches, flexes, positioning exercises. Jack watched in fascination as the creature demonstrated its full physical capabilities. The wolf wasn't just strong, it was incredibly fast and agile despite its size. "You can handle the guards," Jack said, not really asking. The wolf's rumble was deep and confident. "But I don't want you killing anyone unless you have to," Jack added firmly. These Thorn guards may be bastards, but they're just doing their jobs. Knock them out, scare them, do whatever you need to do, but let's not turn this into a massacre. The wolf tilted its head, studying Jack with an expression that seemed almost curious. Then it made a softer sound, almost like agreement. The night of their escape, Jack made his final rounds through the prison. He planted his modified signal scramblers at key communication points, disabled secondary lighting systems, and loosened crucial bolts in the ventilation grates. Everything had to appear normal until the moment they struck. As he approached cell 13X for the last time as a prisoner, Jack felt his heart racing. This was it, freedom or death. There would be no second chances. The wolf was waiting for him, alert and ready. Its massive form seemed to coil with barely contained energy. You ready for this? Jack asked, pulling out the master control device he'd built, a combination of the signal scrambler and power disruptor that would give them their window of opportunity. The wolf's eyes gleamed in the dim light and it moved to the cell door, muscles tensed for action. Jack checked his watch. The guard rotation would change in exactly 4 minutes, giving them the maximum time before the next patrol reached this sector. Remember, Jack said, his voice low and urgent, 30 seconds of darkness, then we move. Stay close to the ventilation routes I marked. The tunnels will be tight for you, but there are only shot. The wolf's rumble was barely audible, but Jack felt the vibration through the floor. He activated the device. The prison's lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting failed to engage. Jack's modifications had worked perfectly. In the absolute darkness, Jack heard the distinctive sound of energy barriers failing, followed by the screech of metal being torn away like paper. The wolf was free. Now. Jack whispered, and together they began their desperate race toward freedom. The escape. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint emergency glow strips that Jack had deliberately left functional along their planned route. In the chaos of the blackout, alarms began wailing from every corner of the prison, but the main communication systems remained jammed by Jack's scramblers. Jack could hear the wolf moving beside him with surprising stealth for such a massive creature. Its breathing was controlled, deliberate, this was a predator in its element. They reached the first checkpoint ahead of schedule. Jack had memorized every step of their route, but in the darkness, even familiar corridors felt alien and threatening. The wolf's keen senses proved invaluable. More than once, its low warning growl stopped Jack from walking into obstacles or guards stumbling blindly through the facility. Junction Point 3, Jack whispered, running his hands along the wall until he found the ventilation grate he'd loosened earlier. The metal gave way easily, revealing the narrow tunnel beyond. The wolf hesitated at the opening. Its massive frame would barely fit through the confined space. I know it's tight, Jack said, but it's our only way. Trust me. The wolf's response was to squeeze into the tunnel without further hesitation. Jack followed, marveling at how the creature could move so fluidly through such a confined space. Behind them, the prison was descending into chaos. Emergency generators were starting to come online, but Jack's sabotage ensured they were operating at minimal capacity. Confused shouts echoed through the corridors as guards tried to coordinate their response. Lockdown protocol initiated, came a distant voice over the failing intercom system. All units to emergency stations. Jack smiled grimly. The lockdown protocols would actually work in their favor, sealing off sections of the prison and limiting the guards' mobility. They reached Junction Point 7 exactly on schedule. The wolf had somehow navigated the tight tunnels without making a sound, while Jack's more clumsy progress had been masked by the chaos above. The old mining shaft is just ahead, Jack whispered, pointing to a section where the maintenance tunnels intersected with much older excavation work. From there, it's a straight shot to the surface. But as they approached the shaft entrance, they heard something that made both of them freeze, footsteps, moving with purpose through the tunnels ahead of them. Overseer Gorlick's voice echoed from the darkness, I know you're down here, human. Did you really think your little pet could help you escape? The wolf's growl was so low Jack felt it more than heard it. In the confined space, the sound was terrifying. "Come out now, and I might let you live long enough to watch us put that beast down properly," Gorlick continued. "We've got thermal scanners, motion detectors, and enough firepower to bring down the entire tunnel system if necessary." Jack's mind raced. They were so close to freedom, but Gorlick was right, the Thorn Overseer had resources they couldn't match in a direct confrontation. Then the wolf did something unexpected. It moved past Jack, positioning itself between him and the approaching voices. The creature's massive form filled the tunnel, creating a living barrier. "No," Jack whispered. "We go together or not at all." The wolf turned its head, and even in the darkness, Jack could see its glowing eyes. There was intelligence there, and something else, determination. The creature was making a choice. Before Jack could protest further, the wolf pushed him firmly toward a side passage Jack hadn't noticed, a maintenance crawlway that led directly to the mining shaft. "I won't leave you," Jack insisted. The wolf's rumble was softer now, almost gentle. Then it did something that broke Jack's heart. It nudged his tool bag one final time, the same gesture it had made during their first encounter. Understanding flooded through Jack. The wolf was giving him a chance to escape, buying him time with its own freedom. "You magnificent bastard," Jack whispered. The sounds of Gorlick's approach grew louder. The wolf's muscles tensed, preparing for battle. Jack made a split-second decision. Instead of fleeing, he activated the last device in his tool bag, a high-powered electromagnetic pulse generator he'd built from prison equipment. The EMP would disable every electronic device in the vicinity, including the Thorn's weapons and scanners. "When I trigger this," Jack whispered urgently, "we'll have maybe 60 seconds before their backup systems come online. Can you take out Gorlick and his squad in that time?" The wolf's response was a rumble that sounded distinctly like laughter. Jack activated the EMP. The tunnel filled with the sound of electronic equipment dying, followed immediately by confused shouts and curses from Gorlick's team. In the sudden silence that followed, Jack heard the wolf move, a fluid, deadly sound that spoke of perfect predatory grace. What happened next lasted only seconds, but the sounds would stay with Jack forever. There were shouts of alarm, the distinctive sound of the wolf's claws against metal and stone, and then, silence. "Status report," came Gorlick's voice, but it was distant now, filled with fear instead of arrogance. "Sir, the beast, it's gone. Vanished. Find it. Find them both." But Jack and the wolf were already at the mining shaft, climbing toward the surface and freedom. The EMP had bought them the time they needed, and the wolf's demonstration of its capabilities had scattered their pursuers. As they emerged into the cool night air of an alien world, Jack looked back at the prison that had held them both. Emergency lights were flickering on throughout the facility, but they were free. The wolf stood beside him, its massive form silhouetted against the stars. For a moment, they simply stood there, breathing the air of freedom. "We did it," Jack said quietly. "We actually did it." The wolf's rumble was soft, satisfied. But Jack knew their escape was only the beginning. Now they had to survive in a hostile world, hunted by every authority on the planet. But for the first time since his capture, Jack Tanner smiled. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. Freedom's price. The alien landscape stretched before them under a canopy of unfamiliar stars. Jack had never seen this world's surface before, few prisoners ever did. Rolling hills covered in bioluminescent vegetation glowed softly in the darkness, while distant mountains loomed like sleeping giants against the horizon. The wolf moved with purpose, leading Jack away from the prison complex toward what appeared to be a network of natural caves in the nearby cliffs. Its knowledge of the terrain suggested it had been studying more than just the prison's interior during its captivity. "You knew about these caves," Jack observed as they climbed the rocky slope. "How long were you planning this escape?" The wolf's only response was a soft rumble, but Jack was beginning to understand the creature's various vocalizations. This one seemed almost amused. They took shelter in a deep cave that offered both concealment and multiple escape routes. Jack was exhausted, but adrenaline kept him alert. Behind them, searchlights swept the landscape as Thorn patrol craft began their hunt. "They'll never stop looking for us," Jack said, watching the lights through the cave entrance. "Especially after we embarrassed Gorlick." The wolf settled beside him, its massive form radiating warmth in the cool cave air. For the first time since their escape, Jack got a good look at his companion in the light of the bioluminescent plants growing near the cave mouth. The Verian Wolf was even more magnificent than he'd realized. Its fur wasn't just silver, it shimmered with colors that seemed to shift with its breathing. Scars along its flanks spoke of battles fought long before its imprisonment, and its eyes held depths of intelligence that made Jack wonder what species could produce such a creature. "What's your story?" Jack asked quietly. "How did a being like you end up in that cell?" As if understanding the question, the wolf moved to a smooth section of the cave wall and began scratching with its claws. The images that emerged were crude but telling: ships in space, battles among the stars, a wolf-like figure standing among other creatures before Thorn warships arrived. "You were a soldier," Jack realized. "A commander, maybe. Your people were fighting the Thorn expansion." The wolf's eyes met his, and Jack saw confirmation there, along with something deeper: loss, grief for comrades who would never see freedom again. "The beast they feared so much was actually a prisoner of war," Jack continued. "No wonder you were planning an escape. You have somewhere to go, don't you? People waiting for you." The wolf's rumble was softer now, tinged with what Jack could only interpret as longing. Over the next several hours, they took turns keeping watch while the other rested. The Thorn search parties were thorough but predictable, following standard patterns that the wolf seemed to anticipate with uncanny accuracy. As dawn approached, painting the alien sky in shades of purple and gold, Jack knew they faced a crucial decision. "I can't stay here," he told the wolf. "This isn't my world, and I don't belong in your war. I need to find a way back to human space, back to my own people." The wolf listened intently as Jack explained his situation, how he'd been captured during a routine repair mission, press-ganged into prison labor, and now faced life as a fugitive on an alien world. "But you have a purpose here. A mission to complete." The wolf rose and moved to the cave entrance, gazing out at the landscape with those remarkable eyes. Then it did something that surprised Jack: it began to vocalize, not in rumbles or growls, but in a series of complex sounds that almost resembled language. From somewhere in the distance came an answering call, then another. The wolf's people were out there, and they were responding to its signal. "Your pack," Jack whispered in amazement. "They've been looking for you too." The wolf turned back to Jack, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, human and alien, former prisoners who had found friendship in the darkest of places. Then the wolf did something that nearly brought tears to Jack's eyes. It moved to where Jack's tool bag lay and carefully extracted something, a small communication device Jack had built to contact human ships. The wolf had been carrying it, protecting it throughout their escape. "You want me to call for help," Jack realized. "To get home." The wolf's rumble was gentle, encouraging. As Jack activated the device and began broadcasting a distress signal on human frequencies, he heard more calls from the darkness. The wolf's people were coming. Soon, his magnificent companion would be reunited with its own kind. Hours later, as a human rescue ship descended from the sky and wolf-like figures emerged from the forest to greet their lost leader, Jack and the Verian Wolf stood together one final time. "I'll never forget you," Jack said, placing his hand on the creature's massive head. "You saved my life in more ways than one." The wolf's response was a soft nuzzle against Jack's shoulder, a gesture of farewell between friends who had found each other in the darkest of circumstances. As Jack boarded the human ship and watched the alien landscape fall away beneath them, he saw the wolf standing with its pack on a distant hill, silhouetted against the alien sunrise. The creature that the Thorn had called a beast was home at last, free to continue the fight for its people's freedom. Jack smiled, knowing that somewhere among the stars, the legend of the Beast of Cell 13X would continue to grow. But those who heard the story would never know the truth, that sometimes, the most unlikely friendships can bloom in the darkest places, and that freedom is a gift worth any price. The mechanic who had been thrown into a death cell had not only survived but had helped free one of the galaxy's greatest warriors. And in doing so, he had discovered that being human meant more than just fixing machines, it meant recognizing the spark of intelligence and dignity in all living beings, no matter how different they might appear. The end.